If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
Our guest on Horse Chats today is Tori Jeffress. Now, Tori is coming down to talk to us about the Brumby Challenge and the horses there, and she's presenting. She's another Equitana educator, and she's presenting at Equitana. But she's come down, and we'll see her down from her father's sheep and cropping property in central west New South Wales. But before I actually get too much and let you know what Tori's doing, I'd just like to remind you that the podcast is brought to you by International Horse College. The main things about International Horse College is horse welfare and safety and their utmost importance, which is why we've included them in our value statement. So within the wide variety of horse courses, we only utilise methods that promote safe and humane methods of interaction between horses and humans, and only support safe methods of educating riders, handlers and trainers about horse welfare. So have a look now at the online horse courses at internationalhorsecollege.com, registered training organisation 31352. Now, going back to Tori, I'm pretty excited to talk to you about Tori. She's presenting twice and she's got two horses with each time. One of those is Nova. We're going to talk to her about Nova and her backgrounds in anatomy, classical dressage and biomechanics. So how are you?
I'm going well. Thanks, Glenys, for having me on the channel.
Oh, no worries at all. I'm happy to have you here, Tori. We've got a few things to talk about, Tori, but you're going to be presenting on 2 days and you've got two different horses. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to be presenting on the Thursday and the Friday. On the Thursday, we'll be with Honey. She's an Arabian warm blood Clydesdale. She's been with me for about a year and a half, and she was a rehabilitation horse. And then on the Friday, I'll be doing another demonstration with Nova. And Nova is part of the Australian Brumby Challenge, and I got her back in June of this year.
Okay, now can you tell me a little bit, and for our listeners that don't know much about the Australian Brumby Challenge, tell me a little bit about the challenge and about how you got involved with the challenge first of all.
Yep. So the Australian Brumby Challenge is something I heard about many years ago. I think it's been at Equitana for quite a while because Equitana is not a biennial thing. The Brumby Challenge is also a biennial thing. So you got the horses, I think it was pretty sure it was June that we got them. So we've got 150 days from when we picked them up through till mid-November, which is Equitana, I suppose, to do, each trainer trains with different philosophies and to work with that horse and then just showcase what you've been doing at Equitana. I decided, actually quite a few years ago, I thought about doing the Brumby Challenge, and then this year I was like, yep, okay, this time, I'm going to go and I'm going to do it this time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I'm really happy that you're doing it. Now, choosing the horses. Tell us about how they get chosen. Do you choose them? Is it a ballot? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we're not actually choosing the horses ourselves. They had like a induction day at the Victorian Brumby Sanctuary in June, and the horses are pulled out of a ballot system, so they get chosen for us. I actually wasn't present when they did the induction day. I came down the Monday afterwards, and then I just got a message to say which Brumby I'd gotten, and I'd been seeing the pictures of them, and you know how like you see a picture of a horse and you fall in love with one, and I was like, don't fall in love with them because you probably won't get that one. Anyway, the mare that I drew was the mare I really liked in the photos.
Oh, isn't that good? Yeah.
And I was so excited. But it actually didn't work out that way because by the time I got there, that mare had actually gotten sick the day before I went to pick her up. So they decided it probably wasn't best that she travel home with me. So I ended up with another Brumby called, Nova. And that's how it kind of came to be that I got her instead. But while I was down there, I actually decided that I'd purchase Marigold, the Brumby that I was originally drawn as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so I picked her up probably 6 weeks after Nova. So I've got both of them at home now.
Okay. Oh, that's great, isn't it?
Yeah, they're super good friends, and I think it's really lovely for them, to have that, I suppose, part of the herd that they were with before, that little bit of consistency still in their life. Yeah.
So I'd just like you to tell me a bit about each step of the journey as we go through. So you drove down there and then you drove home. So it would have been a few hours.
Yeah, it was quite a trek, but we have like a little bit of a joke at home that we're miles from anywhere, but the good thing is that we're central to everywhere, so everywhere's just as far as everywhere else. So it took me probably about 11 hours, I think, with the horse float to get down there, and then 11 hours home, or it's probably a little bit longer home because I stopped a few times. I stopped with Nova, probably 4 or 5 times on the way home just to check her. I offered her some water. She had access to hay the whole way home because she was just like free in the trailer because they're completely unhandled when we picked them up. She was really quite stressed, which, is pretty understandable for a horse that hasn't been handled.
I was going to ask you, how did she go?
Yeah, very stressed, the
yeah.
poor thing. But she actually travelled quite well considering. We didn't get home until really quite late at night. I don't know, might have been like midnight, 1, 2 in the morning or something like that. Got back to my place, and then I just have like cattle yard panels set up, and that's where I unloaded her, and that's where she stayed. I had my other horses on the other side of the yard where she was, so she had someone else to sort of socialize with, and something to kind of make her feel, I guess, a little bit more content that she was all right, because for a Brumby that's I suppose been trapped out of Kosciuszko, and then they've been in the century still in a herd environment, taking them away, driving a lot of hours, and then that big change with new people, new trailer, new horses, new environment is quite a lot for the nervous system to handle.
I can imagine. Even the weather up there, I'm sure, would be a lot different to where she came from.
Yeah, we've got a lot hotter weather than I suppose down in Victoria or even Kosciuszko where she originally came from.
So tell me what the first step was then. When you first got that little bit of connection, did you connect with her and feel it? Did you feel that she was connecting with you? Just tell us a bit about that and how that first bit came about.
So I think the secret, well, I've learned over the years that the secret is to expect nothing. And then if you expect nothing, you're always like surprised. So the first day that I went in there with her, I had no expectation of her, even coming to say hi to me. She'd probably even run away, but she didn't. But I didn't approach her either. Like, I went in her yard. She had hay. I actually sat probably 3 or 4 meters away from her hay. I took a book with me and was like, oh, well, she can eat, do her thing. I'll read my book. And that's what I did. I sat there with her for probably 40 minutes, an hour. She ate her hay. I read my book. And then I just left it at that. I think it was really important. And, the whole way through, it's been really important to make sure that I don't flood her nervous system and overload her too much too soon. She is quite a sensitive horse. So I guess her communication is quite obvious, whereas a horse that internalizes more is a lot easier to overload a horse like that because you think, oh no, they're all right, they're all right, they're all right. But really, they're not all right inside. They're just not outwardly showing it.
So because you had 2 horses, you end up getting Marigold up there. Every horse is an individual. Did you notice a difference between Nova and Marigold?
Yeah, look, there's certainly a massive difference. They're almost completely opposite difference of the aspects of the spectrum. Nova's quite communicative and she's also really sensitive, whereas Marigold, she's also quite sensitive, but she internalizes a lot more. So I think she'd be a horse that would be a lot easier to flood if she was in the wrong hands, because she looks like she's dealing with everything on the outside, but she's actually not on the inside. Whereas Nova's a lot more vocal in that she'll be like, no, I'm not ready for that. And she's really quite direct and firm, and you know exactly where you stand with her, which has actually been really good working with her, because she only has to be like, no, I'm not sure. And you go, okay, yep, no, we'll go and we'll do something else and come back to that later.
All right. So after those first few days, just letting her look around, feed her, sit in the corner with a book, whatever else, then what?
So where I went from there is after the book, I thought, well, actually, I didn't actually think I'm going to move on from the book. What I thought was, I'm going to let her dictate the pace that we go at. I don't want to have an agenda. Like, it's up to the horse how quickly they progress, what they're ready for, what they want to do. So I actually went in with a book one day, and I had the hay in my hand as well because I was going to feed her and read my book. Anyway, she came straight up to me as soon as I went in there, and I went, all right, well, looks like her plan for today is different. So I left the book outside the yard and I just held the hay. And this time instead, she ate from my hand instead of being close to me. And what I did from there is then I took a few steps away from her and then she followed me back to get the hay again, took a few more steps. And we did that for a few days and then sort of changed it a bit, that instead of I gave her hay, I actually gave her chaff, because I'd been giving her a little bit of chaff in her feeder anyway, like the whole time she was there. And what the chaff actually allowed me to do was to touch her lips. So her first touch was actually her eating the chaff out of my hands and my hands on her lips.
Was she surprised when she felt that?
Look, I think she actually wasn't so surprised. I think she was already comfortable enough with me sort of being up in front of her with the hay and being quite close to my hand already that she was quite comfortable with it. She was surprised the first time I touched her on the neck, because I kind of went from touching her on the nose to sort of up her face a little bit, and then I'd kind of just place my hand really gently on her neck while she ate the hay, take it away, place it there, take it away. And I had done it a couple of times, and then one time that I placed my hand on the neck, she just got a fright. It must have caught her off guard, and she turned around and went to kick me. But I think that was actually, a really good thing, because I've been sharing her journey on my Facebook page as well, to share with people, because she's not trying to kick me because she's a nasty horse. She's not trying to kick me because it's a behavioural issue. I think it's just a really good thing to note that these horses are from Kosciuszko. They're born into a herd environment. Their fight or flight response is really strong because they're there to survive. And her reaction there was a reaction that she'd have in the wild.
And it's just instinct, isn't it?
It's just instinct.
Yeah, so as much as we try and humanise them, and we do sometimes,
Yeah, I think we totally do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
all
part
guilty of it.
part of the joy of having horses, but really, that's just something that they've learned.
Yeah, and definitely exactly the same with her. And she went right back to how she was before. She ran away after she went to kick me, and I think she's quite scared herself as well. But then a couple of minutes I just stayed where I was, and she come straight back and she started eating the hay again, and then I just went back to, have my hand close, and then when she was comfortable, I touched her and then it was fine. And I think that's also learning how horses communicate and having that understanding that every horse is different. Every horse's communication is different, and you've got to learn the subtleties of each individual horse's communication to understand what they're actually trying to say. And then you know when to ask for more, when to stop, when to do something else. Yeah, and I think that's what makes a good horseman as well.
So, when she went backwards or reverted to her previous behaviour, did she then come back to you quicker? Start to accept your hand on the neck and start to come back a lot quicker than initially?
Look, I wouldn't say anything with her was overly quickly. Everything was quite slow, but then I'm also totally fine with that. She was happy with me being there, but she was also a bit worried about it. She was happy for me to be there, but she was worried about it, and she didn't want me to go too fast too soon. And I respected that. I think, because we'd also taken her away from, there were 2 grey mares that every single photo I saw of her, she was with those 2 mares. So we've taken her away from where she's comfortable, the horses she's comfortable with. And for her to react like that is totally, expected. And I think on her part, totally called for as well.
Just take us through the journey then from there, the next milestone, I suppose.
Yeah. Look, I think probably from there, what I did was just slowly start touching her further and further back. I wasn't that concerned about getting a headstall on her, not to start with. I more was worried about, or not worried, but my focus was more on having her comfortable with me being in different positions all around her body. So her eating hay up here and me standing back near her barrel or back near her hindquarters. And then from there, me being able to touch her on her barrel or her hindquarters while she's eating. And then when she was comfortable with me sort of being around all areas of her, then I went on to starting to rub her with a rope. So I'd sort of pat her and just have the rope in my hand, but not actually try and get it on her. As she became comfortable with that, then it was just sliding the rope over to the other side of her neck and getting her comfortable with that feeling. And it kind of just progressed to there, to then eventually sliding the headstall on and over her nose. And that way it was quite uneventful. I don't like anything to be eventful or like everything to look ridiculously boring, because I think that's where the horse gets confidence as well. We progressed from there with the headstall and her being comfortable with me being around her, to actually just let her out with Honey, my other mare who I'm going to be doing the demo with at Equitana. And it was super interesting how they interact, actually. Like, because Honey's a domestic horse and Nova's grown up in the wild, it was really cool to see, like, Nova was the boss of her without doing anything. Like, her communication and her herd skills were just so much better, and she only had to kind of look at Honey sideways or put her ears back, and Honey was gone. She didn't have to threaten her or anything. So I thought that was really cool, just how assertive and direct and how good she was with communicating compared to my horses at home that have grown up around people and other domestic horses. From there, I'd bring her in and out just with hay. Like, I hadn't taught her to lead yet. And then eventually I put the lead on. I just taught her, like, off a gentle little bit of pressure, as well as me taking a step away while I was still holding hay, because she was used to me, like, walking away with the hay and her following me, and taught her to lead that way. So it wasn't so much of someone yanking the horse along, it was more following the feel. And then the hay was something that she already understood and already knew and was already comfortable with. And that probably took up a good few months, just getting her comfortable, having me around her, coming in, being around people, being in a different environment, being with different horses. And I never, like, even when I started the challenge, I actually told the organisers on the day I picked Nova up that I had no intention of riding her. So where we got to didn't really worry me. Like, if I got to the stage where I could lead her around at the end of 5 months, it's fine.
Well, it also means that you don't feel at any time under pressure. You just go, the horse is going to tell me when they're ready. You're not sort of counting down days saying, I've got to get the horse to this level by this date.
Yeah, and I think, like, my focus too is, I'm not worried where she is in 150 days. I'm not worried about winning any prize, doing any obstacle course on her back. My concern for her is, all right, like, because I can't keep every horse I have. Am I setting her up the best possible way I can for whoever she's with in 5-10 years' time? Like, am I setting her up for soundness for whoever she's with in 5 or 10 years' time? And I know by taking it slow and doing it this way that I'm giving her the best possible start that I can for her to have a long and happy career as a domestic horse.
Now, what about, I just want to go on and we can keep talking about her, but then when people go and see you at Equitana, I'm sure that this has started off that journey and they can come and see you. But you've got a strong interest in dressage and a strong interest in spinal alignment. So did the spinal alignment inspire the dressage, or the dressage inspire the spinal alignment? Because, like, straightness in a dressage horse is just basic to have a straight horse.
Yeah. Look, to be totally honest with you, I never had, when I was younger, I always thought I was going to be a top level eventer. I love jumping. I left school when I was 16. I worked for an eventing rider for 2 years. That's all I wanted to do. I had no interest in dressage whatsoever. But I had a rotational fall over cross country jump. And after that, like, I realized that I just didn't have the guts to be a top level eventer. And then I thought, oh, well, maybe I can do the dressage thing. At that stage, I'd started to like it a little bit more. So when I was 18, I moved back home. I bought Rocco, who was 3 at the time, I think, a warm blood from Queensland. And I was actually planning with him to go through the grades and maybe pursue a more professional career in the dressage arena instead. But Rocco had other plans for me, and I'm so glad that he did. As soon as I got him home, I started having soundness issues with him. And that's what actually triggered me, I guess, to start learning or looking for other ways. So the dressage come first, then the learning about the anatomy, the biomechanics, having a horse in spinal alignment when you're riding them, that came second. And that was so that I could have a sound, happy, healthy horse, because he definitely wasn't when I got him home.
Was there someone in particular that helped you realise that you need the two? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so look, I started having lessons with Belinda Bolzenbroek, who's also been on this chat.
She has been on the chat. I found it really interesting. We're trying to get her back again. So
Yeah.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, Bee's been incredible. She's been a great mentor for me, and she just helped me see a way through. And I think it's one of those things, I started down this rabbit hole, and then the further you get down it, the more you realize you don't know and the more you learn. And she actually, she helped me get Rocco to as sound as he could be. I actually did Equitana with him last time around and then retired him afterwards. And it inspired me to start, I guess, this work teaching other people, and also taking on other rehabilitation horses and helping other people with their horses and show them a different way of doing things. Because I know, like, where I was at when I had Rocco with all these soundness issues, I didn't know where to go to, what to do next. Maybe I should retire him. And I think just finding that path and then finding those group of people that kind of keep you going and give you the right information, that's what led me to where I am now.
Now, your other horse, Honey. Tell us a bit about Honey.
Yeah, so Honey's a 7-year-old Arabian warm blood with a quarter Clydesdale. She was given to me maybe a year and a half ago, I think now, possibly a little bit more. She actually came to one of my clinics 6 months before that. And I said to her owner when I saw her at the clinic, I was like, oh, if you ever decide you don't want her, just let me know. But I never really thought any more of it. And, I'm, like I was saying before, I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. Yeah, 6 months down the track, you get a phone call and her owner's like, oh, hey, I'm having all these soundness issues with Honey. I'm also starting to have some behavioural issues with Honey. I've had some x-rays. We've seen some changes in the base of her neck, but I'm not really sure where to go from here. And I just, don't know if this is what I want to do or where I'm at. So I decided to take her on. And with her, probably the first 6 to 8 months, it was just in hand work. She was super sensitive to everything. Like, I'd only have to get her out of the paddock, walk her the same track to the arena every day where I tie her up, and she'd speak at the same things every day. But it actually, it wasn't because she was a spooky horse. She'd just become so oversensitive in her body because she had that overload of the nervous system, because she had like all of these issues. She had arthritis in the base of her neck, but also like the muscles and the soft tissues in the surrounding area were also under stress. We suspect she probably had some kissing spinous processes as well. She's quite lame in her right hind. Her musculature was really like quite underdeveloped and had a lot of stress lines in her muscles as well. So the physical aspect of her body had actually caused her to be unstable also emotionally and mentally. And it's a bit of a snowball thing. You get stuck somewhere and then it's trying to find somewhere that you can break that pattern and then get the horse back to better health again. So I did a lot of in-hand work with her. To start with, it was just walking around the arena, trying to find a posture where she was more relaxed, because she'd go around everywhere like a giraffe with her, neck right up in the air. And then instead of actually carrying herself, lifting her back and opening her spinous processes, she was dragging herself along with her front end. Her thoracic sling wasn't lifting properly, so then she was putting a lot of strain on her lumbar, wasn't stepping through properly with the hindquarters. That right hind was under even more strain. So for a while it was just, hey, maybe we could try this posture, and she might only keep it for a circle and then she'd revert back to where she was before. But it's just like allowing those little moments where they feel that better way of going to then start reprogramming those neural pathways over time. Because it's 6 to 10 weeks to start building muscle. You've got 3 to 6 months to reprogram those neural pathways, and then 9 months to a year to heal the ligament. And because we suspected the kissing spine in her as well, I knew that it was going to be 9 months to a year before we got the ligament between those processes starting to heal and getting the nerves that goes up through that ligament, back functioning like they should. So it's been quite a process with her as well. I actually have before and after photos with her where she's nearly unrecognizable now, and she's a much happier horse as well, like heaps less sensitive, a lot braver. And it's, I don't think it's because she's done more, like obviously that's a factor, but I think it's actually because the work that she has done more of has made her feel so much better in her body, that she doesn't feel like she needs to be in that sympathetic nervous system anymore, that she's got to run away and get away all the time. She actually feels content within herself. So she's been super cool.
You do a fair bit of rehabilitation and behavioural issues. What percentage of the behavioural issues do you find that the horses have actually got an injury?
A lot of them. So I think the behavioural issues can come from a few things. It's usually either like due to injury, discomfort in the body, or a trauma response because something's happened to them in the past. They might have been treated poorly. And then they've adopted this behavioural issue as a result of, kind of protecting themselves. But then it becomes ingrained, kind of like kids, a kid that grows up in a domestic violence place, like, is going to have these ways of protecting themselves. And the horses are the same. If they're used to a human not treating them very well, then they get defensive back, and then it becomes a pattern for then the next person to go, all right, well, we're going to have to find a completely new way forward here to show the horse that they actually don't need to react this way. And to do that, you need to make the horse feel comfortable within its own body, comfortable within its own mind as well.
You're bitless and liberty riding. Are you doing any of that at Equitana?
Look, I'm actually not this year around, only because Honey's not ready just yet. I try not to use, I love, actually I'll be riding Honey bitless, that's a lie, but I love the liberty riding, but I try not to use it until the horse is completely confident and balanced within their own body. Because I feel like, while you can ride bridleless, to show the connection and as a little bit of a trick, unless you can ride bridleless in a way that the horse can actually carry itself properly, you're not really doing their body any favours. I feel like, for me anyway, Honey's not ready yet to go bridleless because she's not balanced enough yet. She still needs my help, even though she hasn't got the bit at the moment. Still with the reins, just to help her when she loses the balance, just to find those little bits where you go, oh, yep, there's the alignment. Now I can carry myself again.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I didn't ask you was a favourite quote, a favourite inspirational quote, a favourite saying, something that you find yourself teaching people again and again. Have you got something there that you can talk to us about?
Yeah, I do. So growing up, my parents were always super supportive. My mum and dad always used to say when I was little, you give up, give in, or give it all you've got. And I think growing up on the farm as well, Dad, and I remember when we were kids, Dad used to take us out riding, and Mum used to hate when Dad would take us out riding because Dad has no idea about horses. But he'd take us out riding. It was guaranteed, at least 50% of the time, we'd fall off and we'd get hurt. But he was always like, come on, you're right, get back on. And I think the other thing that my parents also taught me was anything that comes easy isn't worth having, and anything that's worth having doesn't come easy. And they're two things that have kind of rang true the whole way through my life, not just with horses, with every other aspect as well. If it's something you really want, it's not just going to fall in your lap. You've really got to work for it.
Yeah. All right, Tori, is there anything else that you'd like to say to our listeners in preparation for Equitana, or any other questions that you think maybe I should have asked you?
Look, I don't think so. Just that, I'd really love to see everyone there. If you're there, feel free to come over and have a chat. I'd love to share more of Nova's story.
And that'd be afterwards.
Yeah.
Better afterwards than before.
Yep. We've actually just done x-rays on Nova as well. We'll share all the findings of those at Equitana and more of, I suppose, the physical things that I've found in her body that add to why I didn't start her. That's all stuff we'll share at Equitana.
Well, the other thing is too that if people go to horsechats.com, search for Tori or search for Jeffress, and you'll find Tori's page for this chat, and at the bottom of the page we'll put all the contact details on anyway, so you'll be able to go there and maybe a link to Belinda's chat as well.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Yep.
All right, well, look, thanks, Tori. Looking forward to catching up with you at Equitana, and thanks very much for coming on.
No worries at all. Thank you for having me on the channel.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.